So we're done with the recap of chapter 3 of the Auschwitz Escape. So I'm sick today, not really sick, but mildly sick, just coughs and colds. So we're gonna continue to chapter 4. Oof. That's why I sound so sick today, but I'm not really sick, so don't worry about me. I'm good. Chapter 4, May 13th, 1940. The German bombers kept coming. In town after town, Jean-Luc Leclerc could hear the air raid sirens, but he refused to stop, refused to take shelter. He had one mission, and that was to reach Le Chambon no matter what it took. He desperately wanted to hug his daughter Lily, only 6 years old, and her sister Madeline, not quite 4. He wanted to hold them and never let them go. Even more, he wanted to hold his beloved Claire. Surely he had heard about the German invasion. She was constantly listening to the news from Paris and London on the radio. He couldn't imagine the anxiety she was going through. Finally, just after 2 in the morning, he reached his objective. As he pulled into the driveway of the farmhouse, his parents had left him when they had passed away a few years before. He could hear his two dogs welcoming him home. He could see lights coming on inside, and before he knew it, Claire was opening the front door, wrapped in a bathrobe and wearing no makeup. Her already pale face went completely ashen when she saw all those who were in the pickup truck with her husband. Their clothes were torn, their hands and faces were covered in blood and dust. They looked as shell-shocked as they felt. What's more, they were hungry and thirsty and exhausted, grieving their families and friends, the town that they had left behind. "I heard on the wireless," Claire said without missing a beat. "It's all anyone is talking about. Thank God you're okay. Come in, all of you. Please come in. We'll get you something to eat and give you a place to sleep and a hot bath. Come in, don't be shy. You're with friends here." Luke herded them all inside. In the commotion, he didn't get a hug or a kiss from Claire after all. She was too busy scrambling to help the others. It did not bother him in the slightest. He knew they would be alone together soon enough. For now, she was doing what she did best, serving those who needed her most. She was remarkable that way, Luke thought. It was a gift she had, and he had loved to see her use it. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her comfort each guest and get them settled in the living room or the dining room. She looked up and he caught her eye. She winked at him, and he returned the favor. The girls, he assumed, were surely tucked in bed and asleep. He would check in on them in a minute. First, Luke turned and walked outside to the truck. He opened the passenger side door and gently put his hand on Monique's shoulder. She was sound asleep, her arms wrapped around Jacqueline's frail little body, the pink party dress all ripped and dirty and covered in blood. "We're home, you two. Come on, let's get you inside." After some initial resistance, Monique finally roused, and Luke got them inside and settled upstairs in the room that once had been Monique's when they were growing up. Now it was a guest room, quiet and cozy and safe. Luke went to fetch them some fresh towels and brought them back a pot of tea and some fruit as well. Monique nodded her thanks but said nothing. She just began to weep softly again. So Luke held his eldest sister until both of them heard Jacqueline stirring on the bed, asking for her daddy. At that, Luke gave Monique a kiss on the forehead, slipped out of the room so the two of them could be alone, and closed the door behind them. He picked in on Lily and Madeline. They were fast asleep, cuddled together in the same bed, holding the little blankets and stuffed animals. Lily's right arm was draped over her young sister. Luke said a prayer over them, and then kissed them both and quietly slipped out of the room. As he came down the stairs, Claire appeared around the corner and allowed in the corner a load of towels and fresh linen in her arms. She gave him a quick kiss and a weary smile. "Was that Monique and Jacqueline you just took up?" She asked. "Yes, I put them in the guest room, if that's okay." "Of course," Claire said, "but will there be enough room for Nick? Actually, come to think of it, where is Nick? I haven't seen him yet." Luke looked down at his feet. Then he Okay, wait. Okay, it's good. Luke finally collapsed into bed just after 4 o'clock in the morning. He knew he would have to be up soon. As soon as the sun peeked its head above the wooded hills behind their home, he and Claire would need to take care for their own children as well as to make breakfast for all their guests. There was much to do, so much to decide. How long would everyone stay? They certainly couldn't go back to Sudan, but could they really stay here? Monique and Jacqueline could, of course, but how could they house and feed and care for all the others? Hopefully, most of them had relatives in safer parts of France and could go there. That might take some time to sort out, but at least it could be a start. But for right now, it was too late. Both Luke and Claire were physically and emotionally spent, and they needed a little shut-eye. It was not to be. No sooner had both of them closed their eyes than they were awakened by someone furiously pounding on the front door. The two bit their lips and forced themselves out of bed. As they threw on their bathrobes and slippers, they speculated in whispers so as not to wake up the others, as to who could possibly be calling them at such an hour. Luke figured it must be Pastor Chrétien or Pastor Emile, his colleagues at the church, or maybe the mayor come to check on them and see if there was anything he could do to help. Surely they all would have heard the news on the wireless with the invasion of northern France. But Claire said no. Why would the pastors or mayor come so early in the morning? Surely they would wait for daybreak, would they? No one in his right mind would be pounding on their door in the wee hours of the morning unless it was an emergency. She insisted. Then the same thought hit them both at the same time. What if it was the police or even the army? The pounding continued, even ever more fearful than that the whole house would be awakened by the racket. The couple made their way quickly to the vestibule. When they opened the door, they were startled to see that the pastors or the mayor, but a family. To see not the pastors or the mayor, but a family on their porch. There was a father who appeared to be in his late 40s or early 50s. There was a mother too, not much younger, and 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, none of whom seemed older than 15 or 16. Luke had never seen any of them before. Indeed, he had never seen anyone like them. Not in these parts. The father had a full beard, carefully groomed and going gray. He was dressed in a black suit and a black fedora with a white shirt and polished black leather shoes. The mother wore a dark blue silk blouse, a black skirt that went down to her ankles, and a pretty silk scarf over her head. The children were fairly dressed too, all of which seemed a bit out of place on the porch of the farmhouse before sunup. But what was the most striking about them was not their clothing, but the fear in their eyes. Monsieur Leclerc? The father asked, his voice tight and regularly. Yes, that is me, Luke replied. Do I know you? No, but my name is Leon Harvey. I know your brother in the Brussels. You know Philippe? Luke asked, startled by the connection. Of course, and Muriel and little Simon. Are they safe? Where are they now? I do not know, Mr. Harvey said. We are Jews. My father owned the building where your brother and his family rented a flat. When my father passed away a few years ago, he left the building to me. I became your brother's landlord. We've known the family for years, but when rumors of the Nazi invasion began several weeks ago, we made preparations to flee. We begged Philippe and Muriel to come with us. They are, I must say, our dearest Gentile friends, but they did not think Hitler would really do it. We pleaded with them, come with us. There's no more time, but they refused. I'm afraid we could not wait any longer. Last Tuesday we fled the city. It broke our hearts to leave our friends and our home, but soon we couldn't take a chance on being captured by the Germans. But here they are, sending Jews to work camps all over Europe. Luke looked at Claire. He could hardly believe what he was hearing, yet sadly it all rang true. He had been writing to his brother for months, urging him to bring his family to La Chambon, but, like Monique said, had no time for rumors of war or invasions. He was a violin teacher. He had his classes, he had his lessons, he had his students to think about. Looking back at the man, Luke asked how they found their way to Leschenbahn. They wrote this book of you all the time, Mr. Halloween replied. He spoke of this little town he loved so. He spoke of his childhood there. When we fled Brussels, we started for Switzerland, but we don't know anyone there. And my wife thought of Leschenbahn. She thought maybe we could find shelter here. That is why we have come. Is that true? Might you take us in, at least until we can figure out what to do next? Luke tensed. He wanted to say yes. He couldn't imagine saying no, not to any family that was fleeing the Nazis, and especially not a family who were friends with Philippe and Muriel. But neither could he bear to look over at Claire. The house was full. He had no idea how they were going to take care of all those who had already come. He could only imagine the enormous burden she must be feeling, and now this? It wasn't fair to her. As much as it pained him, he would have to say no. They weren't running a refugee center. They were just putting up a few people for a few days. That was all. Before he could utter a word, Claire spoke. Of course you can stay with us, Mr. Hallaby. Come on in. Please come in. That's it for today. Stay tuned for the next chapter. Bye! Oh, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Bye!